Growing takes time. Ranch Systems has the tools to help you quickly get the information you need so you can get on with your day. Check your water, crop status, and weather from real sensors in your field. To learn more, contact us today.
Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with American Vineyard Magazine, reporting to you here today in Fresno, where the annual meeting of Allied Grape Growers was held. I'm here with Jeff Bitter, president of the organization. You had a lot of great things to share with the industry. Obviously, there's some problems as well. One of them being volume in sales is down. Price is a little different, though. But can you tell us about what's going on with the weakness? You just described a weakness in the market for the last several months.
Yeah, well, it all started really in July of last year, where all of a sudden we saw wine shipments drop precipitously. And we've seen weakness in shipments probably from that period on, from July through current time. But it was very pronounced from that July to December time period last year. And that was kind of during harvest last year, so a lot of growers didn't feel the impact of what was happening on the retail side. But we suffered a time period of 6 months there between July and December of last year. That was probably the weakest time period in terms of shipments from California that we'd seen in 30 years, since 1993, according to John Moore-Marco of Gomberg Fredrickson report. So the reaction to that, of course, is extreme, right?
Yeah.
When you have that type of fall off on sales is about 10% for that time period. The whole year ended up about 5% down. And so the reaction to that is that, of course, buyers will pull in their horns a little bit, play conservative, and sit and wait to see a couple of things. What's the crop going to look like this year as it develops? And how are sales going? How are shipments? Are we rebounding from that negative time period that we had starting in July of last year and really kind of going through, let's say, March of this year so far? The most current data we have is kind of a couple months back. And so we're facing a time of uncertainty and apprehension in terms of, do those buyers go out and proactively look for grapes, or do they back off and wait and see how the market develops?
So what are the reasons behind this? Like that's really significant. And moving forward, do we anticipate it to be similar?
Good question. Well, the reality is there's a number of factors that contributed to the sudden decline in shipments, most of which we think are short-term. A lot of it has to do with changes, economic changes, so inflation. Wine prices had to be raised over the last few months and year or so to kind of respond to inflation, increased cost. Anytime you raise prices, you're going to decrease demand. That's simple supply and demand economics. The other thing is interest rates have gone up. So most wineries, most businesses that operate off of borrowed money are going to be sensitive about borrowing that money now. In fact, that's the very reason why interest rates are raised, is to slow down an economy, to battle inflation. And so we're seeing that effect in the wine business, where maybe there's a little less interest in taking those chances and going out and buying grapes that maybe you don't have a program for yet, or you're kind of speculating on. And so it just causes folks to pull in their horns. We had some supply chain challenges with both wine shipments and also wine supplies in terms of bottling, glass and corks and different things like that. And so that has played into it. And we have longer term issues that are probably a little bit more ingrained in kind of the negative aspects of our business in terms of how are we going to attract those younger, newer consumers to the business. And that's problems we've been talking about for a while, but that's all plays into it as well. We've had hyper competition, if you will, from various sources, whether it's alternative drink beverages or foreign countries producing the same product as us. There's just a number of things that kind of was a perfect storm in the last few months to cause some apprehension in the industry. I talked about it a lot at the Unified Symposium back in January. Those problems kind of persist today. And, and we've also had 3 short crops in a row, which has allowed us to remain in balance from a market perspective. But as we've been talking about, you cannot plan a sustainable business model on short crops. So all of those things are kind of playing into now what we see as a market that's a little less clear, and something that we're all going to have to just take day by day. But the message today at our meeting was, a lot changes in a year. A lot has changed since this time last year, and a lot can change by this time next year. So we'll see what happens.
So there's some sort of market correction that is likely to come, but in what form, that's still pretty unclear, isn't it?
Yeah, it is unclear, but correction is going to be, I'd say in the long term, it's going to involve grapes, varieties, price points, categories that are less desired, less in demand. So you're going to see corrections there. But in the short term, the correction really revolves around who has a contract and who doesn't. And that's probably a bigger issue than anything else at this point, because when you have this kind of sudden reaction to what's happening in the marketplace, it doesn't really matter. Some of those other things don't matter. The real issue is, do you have a contract or not? And if you don't, then, and even if you have great grapes and you have grapes that are, in theory and in demand in terms of variety, you could still get caught being part of that corrective action in the market, where wineries can substitute what they otherwise need with something they have and oversupplying their own inventory. So I think correction takes on the look of a few different faces. Right. Yeah.
Well, thanks for the update, and thanks for putting on a wonderful meeting. As always, read more about these things in American Vineyard Magazine. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.